Podobnież, tak słyszałem opisy tego filmików, podobnież Taliesin i Vitel, jak widać, twierdzą, że są pewni, że będzie klasa w WoWie, Dark Ranger, czyli a la Sylvanas.
This video is sponsored by NordVPN.
To bardzo ładnie. Z tej strony.
Hello internet, Taliesin here, and today we are talking Dark Rangers, as in the sexy red-eyed emo elf bodyguards of Sylvanas Windrunner, and S-tier 9-carat guaranteed top answer on any WoW player's new playable race/class that I would like to see
A gdzie jest Tinker? Jest Tinker RR.
added to the game, because honestly, who wouldn't want to play as one of these gals? They are hot and deadly, like TikTok mugshot guy or a badly wired electric kettle. Well, good news, internet, because today we are also talking playable Dark Rangers. How I and many others are convinced that they are coming in the next expansion, and the hard evidence that backs it up. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, Taliesin, I get what this video is all about. You need some clicks, and so you've put out a playable Dark Ranger video, because that's a guaranteed way to get people excited. But it's
To jest dokładnie to, co ja myślę.
just going to be a whole bunch of vague references and hopium, GG. And honestly, I don't blame you for thinking that. Playable Dark Rangers is right up there with WoW sucks and why I left my guild as guaranteed crowd pleasers in the Warcraft YouTube arena. But what if I told you there is a Dark Ranger questline that has been in the data since 8.1.5, has never been taken out and has been updated in recent builds?
Czekajcie, to ja nie wiem, o czym jest mowa. Dark Rangers people effective abyss your hero champion. Anyone interested without my credentials? Okay, she's been training. Okej. Czyli w bazie Hunterów w Legionie.
9.2.5 PTR.
Okay.
What if I told you that the obvious story threads and groundwork that Blizz laid for playable Dark Rangers for both factions in the BFA storyline are about to be taken up again in the new patch, and that encrypted maps and models all point towards a sexy dark silhouette that can only be Dark Rangers, being played by you in Horde or Alliance in some capacity in the very near future. Well, join us as we reveal and discuss the overwhelming evidence that playable Dark Rangers are coming, okay? Go.
Wcale nie będzie,
This
nie
all
będzie
begins
wcale
back in
nic takiego.
2019 with a single quest which popped up in the data for patch 8.1.5.
Okay.
Fittingly, the same patch that playable Kultiran humans and Zandalari trolls were added to the game. The quest is called the Dark Rangers
to jest to, co
Pupil
widzieliśmy.
and sees players heading to True Shot Lodge, the Legion Hunter order hall, at the request of Death Hunter Morguth, an NPC who, back in Legion, sent hunters on a cute quest to help him woo Dark Ranger Velenara, a quest which eventually rewards the Dark Ranger Hood.
O, pamiętam to, bo to nie był quest jako taki, tylko to był taki ukryty trochę quest. Jakby tego chyba w quest logu się nie miało w ogóle. Pamiętam to.
In this new quest, he reveals that Velenara has gone missing in search of a freshly raised novice Dark Ranger that she has been training, who himself has run off in search of his brother in Tirisfal Glades. There are different versions of this quest text for Horde and Alliance, and the fact that players are referred to as Champion in the text, as opposed to, say, Huntmaster, the title awarded to hunters in Legion,
O, słuszna uwaga.
suggests that this quest may also have been open to all classes, despite starting in this specific order hall. Now, in that same PTR, there was a new map data mined for Scarlet Halls, which definitely seemed to be associated with this quest. Scarlet Halls is in Tirisfal Glades, where Velenara's pupil was headed. Velenara herself was actually a quest giver in every...
A co jeśli tutaj chodziło na przykład nie o nową klasę Dark Ranger, a na przykład o nowy... I don't know... class skin?
Every wing of the Scarlet Monastery right up until the Mists of Pandaria changes. And also, the map is called Scarlet Hall's Dark Ranger, so yeah, there's that too. This would certainly appear to be part of a scenario involving Velenara, her pupil, and the search for his brother. I don't know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, yeah, Taliesin, absolutely, these things all seem connected, but apart from the fact that this quest never made it out of the data to be playable in any way,
Ale
who's
to
to say
mogło
it was
chodzić o
ever
coś
intended
innego.
to be something that led to playable Dark Rangers
No właśnie.
anyway? And even if it were, then it's clearly not an idea that Blizzard are continuing with. And again, those are very fair and reasonable points. Thanks for bringing them up. Let's answer the second one first. The quest may not have made it into patch 8.1.5, but it's wrong to say that Blizzard have abandoned it, like Bane in basically any story he's involved in. Far from it, in fact, because the Dark Ranger's pupil was also in the 8.2 data and the 8.3 data.
W ogóle były w BFA, w ogóle w kampanii Alliance na początku były wątki Sunlinów. Znaczy, czy to jest powiązane Sunlini z Dark Rangerami? Mogliby być w sumie, zależy jakby to
the Shadowlands Alpha data, where would you look at that? It's been updated. The pupil that Velenara is trying to find has now been given a name, Freeless. It seems like a pretty random update, doesn't it? A random name for a random not yet in-game NPC, but the fact that it has been updated at all shows that this isn't just something that Blizzard have locked away in the Medan cupboard. Someone in Team 2 has taken the time to do this, and can we just take a closer look at that name, please? Freeless as a word doesn't mean anything specific, but it is very similar to another word. In fact, if you Google the word Freeless, the first word word that comes up is the dictionary definition of the word prelude, as in an action or event serving as an introduction.
To okej. Tutaj dostałem taki vibe na maksa. Ja chyba w ogóle zrobiłem coś dokładnie podobnego. Mojego pierwszego filmiku na YouTube o płaskim Azeroth. No to chyba wiele mówi.
Something more important. A pretty strong hint that this quest, called the Dark Ranger's Pupil, will lead to something big and important, and gosh, I wonder what that could be. And incidentally, also in the Shadowlands alpha data, there was this interactive wanted poster called Dark Ranger's Dark Times. But you know, I'm sure that's not important. I'm sure that's got nothing to do with anything. His name is Prelus, for f***'s sake. Another thing, also in this version, the way Morgooth greets the player has changed too, from champion to fellow hunter, suggesting that while the quest is
Jesus, czyli najpierw się zwracał do nas champion, a teraz jednak to jest tylko dla hunterów.
cross-faction, it is now only available to hunters.
Ale tak w ogóle swoją drogą, ja bym chciał zauważyć, że to nie jest do końca. Jakby w Legionie my byliśmy nazywani per tam, nie wiem, tam, no jakby wiecie, klasa, tam master, tam order hallu, nie wiem, tam high lord i tak dalej, ale nie zawsze byliśmy też nazywani czempioni.
And so
Per
things
champion.
remained with the Dark Ranger's Pupil throughout Shadowlands
Tak, a propos
until
tego, co wcześniej
literally
było.
this week, when the first patch 9.2.5 build hit the PTR, and would you believe it, the Dark Ranger's Pupil has been updated again, with Morgooth's greeting changing
To jest dziwne
again,
faktycznie. W ogóle Morgoths.
this time referring to the player as Huntmaster, that Legion Order Hall title. A cross-faction Dark Ranger questline given to you by an NPC who in the past has given you an item that helps
No to nie to, żebym ja był ten, ale mi to bardziej wskazuje na klas skina Dark Ranger.
you look like a Dark Ranger, specifically about a new Dark Ranger recruit called Prelus, which was added to the game in Legion and continually updated right up until the latest build, with its own
To
scenario
jest
map
ciekawe,
and
na pewno.
interactive quest items. That is some pretty compelling evidence all by itself, but what if I told you it's not the only interesting Dark
No.
Ranger linked update in the new PTR?
Mam nadzieję, że masz coś
Because
więcej.
It's not. But before that, I think it's quite important to take a moment to look at the narrative seeds that Blizz have been sowing for playable Dark Rangers that look like they are ready to be reaped. Dark Rangers are traditionally ex-members of the Fast Riders of Kel'Thalas, a regiment of elite high elf rangers under the command of the Ranger General Sylvanas Windrunner, and who, along with their leader, were killed in the Scourge invasions of the Third War. Raised into undeath by Sylvanas, they served as the Banshee's personal bodyguard and
No,
Black
to
Ops
też
unit, and
elfy
they
by
have
w tym
captured the
momencie
imagination
były,
of
nie?
players since day one.
To co, po
for
stronie
a
przymierza to by były Void
number
Elfy?
of reasons. Firstly, obviously, they are badass AF. They're rangers, which means they deal in bows and stealth, and have a habit of leaping out of the shadows to cause havoc when you least expect them. They are undead high elves, which in itself is a rarity. All Forsaken characters that we, the plebs scumbag WoW players, can make are humans from Lordaeron. Sylvanas having a deal
Co jest moim zdaniem w ogóle skandalem. Moim zdaniem równie dobrze tam mogłyby być Forsakeni elfy.
Blood Elves not to raise any more of her old gang into the ranks. And of course, their representation in the game is overwhelmingly female, despite Fast Riders being a mix of genders. So, you know, there's that too. All in all, the reasons for not having playable Dark Rangers were pretty understandable. There is a minuscule number of them. They are of a different race to established playable undead characters, and there is no way of new Dark Rangers being created.
No i teraz, no i w ogóle jeszcze to, że po prostu, no tak mi się wydaje, w sensie całą klasę z tego zrobić, ze specjalizacjami i żeby to było ewidentnie inna klasa i inne klas fantazy, a nie po prostu mieszanka Rogue'a z Hunterem i tam powiedzmy elementami, tam nie wiem, Shadow Priesta, tak?
And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but
Ale
Taliesin,
nie
the
wiem, może
quest we were
dałoby się.
just talking about is called the Dark Ranger's Pupil and is about a new Dark Ranger recruit. And you are right, my beautiful big brain 5000 IQ viewer. It is. And that's because the Dark Ranger situation has been changing quite a lot in recent times, most notably from Battle for Azeroth and the War of Thorns, when Sylvanas' horde attacked Darkshore and eventually destroyed Teldrassil. I don't know if you remember that. And we were introduced to a blood elf called Lorash Sunbeam, both in the game and in the BFA prequel novella A Good War.
Nie
In the War of
pamiętam
Thorns,
gościa.
Lorash leads the initial attack on Darkshore and is killed by Malfurion before being raised as a new Dark Ranger by Sylvanas. Something you may remember I mentioned about 10 seconds ago is not allowed according to her deal with Lorthamar. And yet here we are, and suddenly making new Dark Rangers is back on the menu, boys. And
Ja w ogóle nie pamiętam
not
tego.
just limited to Blood Elves either. In the aftermath of the Horde victory, Sylvanas sends players out to raise, specifically fallen Night Elf Sentinels into the ranks. Some of which managed to resist the call, and we now know anything
za
more
nocne
about its own
elfy.
dudes. But many
No
of them...
znaczy w sumie faktycznie jakby jak był Warfront Darkshore potem, który był gdzieś tam kontynuacją tego wątku, to W sumie tam były te wskrzeszone te nocne elfki, które tam miały taki trochę Dark Rangerowy.
Do enter undead servitude and are labelled Dark Rangers. So we now have a hearty new batch of male and female Dark Rangers, made up of Blood Elves and Night Elves. I think you'll agree things are currently Tabasco levels are spicy, but buckle up fam, because we're gonna go full Carolina Reaper on this shit. Because in the course of the Fourth War, Sylvanas goes off the rails harder than the world's worst skateboarder, to the extent that half the Horde actively worked to undermine and overthrow their leader. The Dark Rangers, of course, remained totally loyal until Sylvanas' big...
You are all nothing!
To jest w ogóle jeden z głupszych momentów, moim zdaniem, ostatnich. W sensie jakby... Tutaj problem jest... Dobra, nie chcę w ten wątek już chodzić, ale tutaj problem jest taki, że to nie była sama symbolika, tylko gdyby... Inaczej, gdyby Sylvanas tutaj nie krzyknęła po prostu, że wszyscy są niczym, to jakby się wszystko inaczej potoczyło.
Rant and subsequent yeeting off, at which point opinions among the Ranger gang became a lot more mixed. In the aftermath of Siege of Orgrimmar 2.0, Dark Ranger Velenara, oh wait, that sounds familiar, where have we seen her name for? Oh yes, now I remember. Tells the player that although some of the Dark Rangers have chosen to stay by Sylvanas' side, she and many others have not, and are starting a new chapter in the Dark Elf saga in the service of the Horde. At the same time, Lillian Voss calls a meeting with new weird Lightforged undead ex-princess of Lordaeron, Carlia Menethil, and freshly raised Derek Proudmoore at the Calston estate, in which Carlia agrees to try and help those new Forsaken Night Elf Sentinels raised at Darkshore, born, as Lillian puts it, into rage and...
A z czego to w ogóle... Skąd to jest? Skąd to jest w ogóle ta cała cutscenka, ta historia? Jakby ja w ogóle... Ja albo nie pamiętam tego, albo ja nie robiłem tego? Z czym jest to związane? Końcówka BF-a? Czemu ja tego nie pamiętam w ogóle? Przegram... Hordą tam też grałem. Nie, możesz
darkness. They are abandoned, forsaken, angry, confused, in need of a guiding hand and some serious therapy. And the last we saw of this Alliance-centric undead band, they were heading en masse to do that soul-searching in Death Knell. As in, you know, the Forsaken starting area, Death Knell. So to recap, the FA very
Nie pamiętam tego, naprawdę, co?
explicitly advances the Dark Ranger lore, so that by the end of the expansion where the concept of allied races was introduced, by the way, we now find ourselves in a situation where a whole bunch of new Dark Rangers have been made from both Blood Elves and Night Elves. Many of the high...
A to właśnie dlatego mi się wydawało, że Shadowlandsy to był fajny moment. No inaczej. Z tym wszystkim, co tutaj jest mówione, gdybyśmy się cofnęli przed premierę przed ogłoszenie Shadowlandsów, to ja bym był w stanie w to uwierzyć. I bym faktycznie mówił, że okej, wszystko na to chyba wskazuje i to jest najlepsze. Ale teraz już po Shadowlands, bo Shadowlandsy właśnie to był bardzo fajny moment na to, nie?
Blood Elf Dark Rangers, including old favorites, chose to stay on and serve the Horde after Sylvanas' departure, marking an independence from the Banshee Queen.
Bo pamiętajmy, że zawsze jak wchodzi klasa do World of Warcraft, to ona zawsze jest jakby tematycznie związana z dodatkiem, nie?
First time since their undeath. Night Elf Dark Rangers have seemingly left the Horde entirely and are in the process of coming to terms with their new unlives, in much the same way as we saw the Lordaeron Forsaken do in the early days of WoW, under the care of the undead princess of Lordaeron. Basically, the way is clear and the stage is set for both the Horde and Alliance to get their own playable undead elf Dark Rangers. Which is why, when this image leaked, alongside that Bastion image that turned out to be a real leak, by the way, people were very willing to believe.
Nie, wtedy to już było wiadome, że to jest prawdziwe, bo to był leak jakby z Bliss Shopu.
The time had come at last, since the whole previous expansion...
To właśnie Dark Ranger, chyba, ale zaraz, chwila, moment, ale tego w ogóle po lewej, to ja też w ogóle nie pamiętam tego, że był taki leak. To było naprawdę? To może Dark Rangery może miały być w ogóle w Shadowlandsach? What?
had done so much groundwork to enable playable.
Były. Dosłownie tydzień przed BlizzConem był przeciek jakby z pliku właśnie z Blizz Shopu, oni przypadkiem coś wcześniej dali i tam były te Shadowlandsowe grafiki i wtedy było już 100% wiadomo, że to Shadowlands.
Of course that turned out to be a false hope for Shadowlands, but we have pretty strong reasons to believe that it's something which is coming in 10.0. There's the fact that since telling us about her plans to stay with the Horde, Velenara's NPC has gone missing from Orgrimmar and hasn't been seen at all in Shadowlands. Missing much like she is described as being in the Dark Ranger's pupil. I remember I said earlier there was some other interesting data in 9.2.5. Well, let's take a look at that, shall we?
Ale ja się teraz nie mogę wyzbyć myśli, że kuźwa, może faktycznie oni Dark Rangerów planowali na Shadowlands, tylko na przykład nie zdążyli, czy co?
As well as the update to the Dark Ranger's Pupil quest that we've already talked about, the 9.25 PTR is unexpectedly full of loads of juicy goodies like new heritage armor and weapon quest lines for Blood Elves and Dark Iron Dwarves, new mount rewards for those races. We're going to see cross-faction play being tested on there too, but there's also something very important concerning our Dark Ranger saga. A new encrypted map of Tirisfal Glades. You know, where we are sent to look for Prelus and Velenara in the Dark Ranger's Pupil. And this map is not part of the Blood Elf heritage stuff. It appears to be connected to something completely different. I wonder what. And as well as that, there is an encrypted model for Kalia Menethil, who
Tylko mi się nadal wydaje, że to wszystko to może wskazywać na to, że będzie coś z Dark Rangerami jako takim, że będzie taki wątek. Ale to niekoniecznie moim zdaniem nadal musi wskazywać na to, że to będzie nowa klasa Dark Ranger. To może być po prostu wątek o Dark Rangerach, nie wiem, może jakiś... Można to połączyć z tysiącoma innych rzeczy, nawet po prostu sama w sobie jakaś tam offside'owa historia, czy coś, ale to nie musi oznaczać od razu nowej klasy też,
Dark Rangers at the Calston Estate.
Może,
and as well as that, there is an area table connected to that encrypted Glades map, which among others lists the Calston Estate as a place that has apparently been updated. There is no denying it, something is going on with the Dark Rangers, and I'm at the stage where playable Dark Rangers in some form or other next expansion would be less of a surprise than if there wasn't playable Dark Rangers. There is just too much evidence at this stage to not take it incredibly seriously, which raises the question, doesn't it? What form would playable Dark Rangers even take? The first, most obviously, is a new playable class. We're due a new playable class in 10.0, having not had one since Legion, the longest gap between new classes in the game's history, and a new 2-spec hero class with the classic bow-wielding ranged ranger. I've just worked out why they're called rangers. And the more stabby melee version would fit the modern mold set by Demon Hunters previously. If you were to have a new class, you'd want it to be a ranged class and a mail-wearing class. And
Znaczy, ja nie ukrywam, że jest coś w tym fajnego. Jest... W koncepcie generalnie tego Dark Rangera, mi się generalnie klas fantasy tego bardzo podoba. Jakbyśmy mieli już dostać jakąś klasę do WoWa, to byłaby jedna z tych fajniejszych, moim zdaniem, opcji. Obok Tinkera.
The flaws in the idea of Dark Rangers as a standalone class is pretty obvious, though, isn't it? Like I just said, they are basically just cooler hunters or cooler rogues. What mechanics and abilities would they possibly use that aren't basically just hunters and rogues? Probably not many. And if the plan is to only have Blood Elves and Night Elves become Dark Rangers, then, well, yeah, that just happens to be the exact same incredibly narrow race restriction as Demon Hunters, which is a bit sad, really, isn't it? The next option is to have them as an allied race, and this makes a lot of sense. The Dark Rangers pupil has all...
Patrzcie, to jest nawet screen z tych klas skinów.
All the hallmarks of an allied race unlock chain, and having Dark Rangers as a...
Ale że allied rasa, która by miała taki jakby skin jako ten, jako hunterzy, no to też jest to, też jest to coś, no.
Sides would be a lot easier than having to make a whole new class whose toolset has already been bagged by other classes. But the problem with that idea is, like, what are you going to do? Just make Hunter and Rogue be the only classes that your new allied race can pick from? It would feel a bit weird to see a Dark Ranger priest or a warrior running around, you know? In fairness, I think loads of people would be absolutely okay with a Dark Ranger allied race that was limited to Hunter and Rogue class choices. But that doesn't seem like Blizzard's style to me, which brings us to the third option, a straight-up unique customization. What if Dark Ranger customization was basically the Mists of Pandaria Green Fire quest for Warlocks, but for Hunters?
O, i to jest class skin
właśnie. Only appears to be available to Hunters since it starts in the and we are specifically referred to as Huntmaster. What if this is a questline that takes us through Tirisfal and the Scarlet Monastery in an adventure that shows not only Velenara vowing to keep the legacy of the Dark Rangers alive by enlisting more raised Blood Elves to the cause, but also shows us the Forsaken Night Elf Sentinels reach a point where they have come to terms with the fate that has befallen them and are ready to try and rejoin the Alliance again, with Derek Proudmoore being their in. It's a bit complicated. Kalia is currently on the Horde Council and is probably being set up for a reunion with her human Lordaeron Forsaken in the long run. And what if, at the end of it all, Blood Elf and Night Elf Hunters have access to the character customization options that would enable them to take on the appearance of their new sub-faction. You could even add differences in the way some abilities look too, just for extra flavor.
Może też na takiej zasadzie, jak na przykład Nocne Elfy miały tam w BFA, dostały ten tam, jak to się nazywało? No wiecie, te takie ciemne oczy i tak dalej, nie wiem, no teraz cholera.
But you look at that, suddenly it's the class skins idea that we talked about back in BFA.
Night Warrior.
Yeah, I think in all honesty, in a game that probably has enough classes and allied races for now, class skins, where existing classes get race-specific reskins, where only the appearance and possibly names of the abilities change, like light-themed Shadow Priestess for Lightforged Draenei, or Spellbreakers for Blood Elf Prop Paladins, or Water-themed Tide Sage for Kultyr.
No, ale tutaj to już mówię o class skin, ale no ja pierdolę. W sensie on mówi tutaj w sumie o... Nie. On tu mówi o rasowych class skinach. O, w ten sposób. On tu mówi o rasowych class skinach.
Or Dark Rangers,
Tak jak
like
to
we
rozumiem,
suggest in that
przynajmniej.
old video. Give players that playing as something new hit
Ale
that I
to by
think
było
every new expansion
zajebiste. Chryste, jakby to było zajebiste. Tym bym się jarał 1000 razy bardziej niż tym, żeby to była nowa klasa.
deserves. So, is this it? Are class skins about to be made a reality? Are Dark
O,
Rangers
Jezu,
just
tak.
the first in a line of
Tak,
planned class and
tak,
race-specific
proszę,
customizations
proszę,
that we can
proszę,
expect
proszę.
in 10.0? If that's the case, perhaps this is why it looks like it's coming in 9.25 rather than the expansion proper. Our first taster of a new system with more to come, just like they did with allied races. Only time will tell, and honestly, we aren't going to need to wait too long, because if Dark Rangers are being made a thing, then you would imagine
To
they
będziemy
will be
wiedzieć za
announced
3
in the
tygodnie.
new expansion reveal on April the 19th.
Yep.
You can bet I've got it on my bingo card, and internet, I'm sure I don't have to tell you that I am very, very excited, and I'm as sure of this as I was for Tinkers. Okay, yeah, let's not talk about Tinkers. Wow, I had this video ended 5 seconds ago, but what do you think? Are Dark Rangers imminent? How would you like
No
to
i
see them
właśnie,
implemented
no.
in the game? What other class skins would you like to see if it becomes a thing? Or why am I completely wrong about everything as usual? Let us know in the comments below, and thanks for joining us today. If you
Fajny filmik. Znaczy, powiem szczerze, że nie przekonało mnie to wcale do tego, że to jest absolutnie pewne, że będzie nowa klasa Dark Rangera. Moim zdaniem to wszystko, co tu jest mówione, wskazuje na bardzo duże prawdopodobieństwo, że będzie wątek Dark Rangerów. Natomiast czy to będzie klasa? Moim zdaniem niekoniecznie. Ale może. A nadzieję mam zdecydowanie bardziej na class skiny, tak jak zawsze i wszędzie. Wiecie o co chodzi. No dobra, ale fajny filmik. Quality, jak zawsze Taliesin.